All right, let's talk. Let's talk about setting up your budget inside of YNAB for the first time. This can be a little daunting and a little overwhelming, especially if you have lots of accounts to add. Okay. So I'm going to show you some of the most important pieces you've got to pay attention to when you do your setup to keep from having to just restart. The good news, however, is that you can always restart. There's a cute little button up here at the top called Make a Fresh Start where you get to start over. Okay. So the first thing that you're going to see when you come into your budget is this page here. It's going to already have its own categories listed in here. You're going to have quite a few of them. I personally recommend clicking on the major category groups and just hitting delete. Delete all of them and start fresh. If you already have a cash flow plan that you've been working with, if you already have a template where you've started thinking about it. Otherwise, it's okay to start with the categories that it gives you and explore out from there how you want them laid out. How do you want them categorized? Do you want certain things in certain places? Do you want an entire category group for transportation? Do you want an entire category group just for sinking funds? I do recommend that, by the way. I recommend a sinking funds category, a short-term savings goals category. So this would be like, maybe you're wanting to buy like some patio furniture. Have a category specifically for that. And you can even come in here and put inside of the name. So all of these names, you just click on them and then you can change their names. Inside of that, you can put what your goal is. So let's say my emergency fund goal is $10,000, right? Just to have it right there in front of you of what the goal is. So if you have a short-term savings section, then you can put in patio furniture, $800 or whatever you think it's going to cost you, and have that there. So your first step before you add any accounts, before you do anything else, is to get these categories to match what you're wanting your cash flow plan to look like. Remembering that you can always make changes. You can always adjust things later. You can come in. So every single category group, you can click the name and change it or delete it. And for every category, you can click the name and change it or delete it. And you can also move things around. So you can put one above the other. You can make sure one's at the top. I personally recommend prioritizing these categories to the best of your ability. So, for me, tithe is at the very top. Rent mortgage might come before charity, but I like having the giving category together, right? So to the best of your ability, get these things categorized put in order of priority. So my four walls, which is my housing, transportation, utilities, and shelter, is up above my monthly bills, which is the stuff that always comes out, which is above the expenses that I personally can control, right? And then savings and debt payments below that. If for you, debt payment is a huge priority, pull that piece up to the top. All you have to do is click and drag, and you can bring it up to the top, okay? So everything can be clicked and dragged, everything can be clicked and edited. It's very intuitive and self-explanatory as far as that goes. So that's your first step, is get the categories, just the names and the categorization of it the way that you want it. That's your first step, okay? The second thing is you're gonna start adding accounts. Now, this is the part that starts to confuse people. The first thing I want you to know is when you add an account that is on budget, YNAB wants you to give every single penny a job. So if you were to open a checking account in here and say that it had $2,000 in it, this number of amount to be budgeted will be $2,000. Okay. So we'll walk through what that looks like, because a lot of people don't necessarily want to spend every dollar or every penny that's in their checking account. So the first thing I need you to see when you go to add account, click add account, is you can do linked or unlinked. When you do linked, you can choose your institution. You're going to agree to Plaid because that's a third party they use. Select your bank, and then you're going to log in. I'm obviously not going to do that right now because I'm not going to log into the bank, but you're going to do that to connect it to your bank account. I am going to show you what it looks like to do everything that comes after that. So step one is link it to your actual bank account. You can do PayPal. Most banks work. The only banks that really don't work are like tiny credit unions. So if you're in a super tiny local credit union, you may not be able to link it. You may have to do things manually. But other than that, most banks are working. Then you're going to say what type of account it is. I want you to see this. This is super, super important. Up here is the budget accounts. Budget accounts means that every transaction that goes in or out of that account must receive a category. You must be able to say, this is groceries, this is rent, this is my cell phone bill. Okay, you must be able to give it a category. Every transaction can have a category, but not every transaction should, right? When you're doing a cash flow plan, you don't necessarily need or want to categorize every single individual transaction. Maybe you just want to call it a credit card payment, right? So only add accounts here that you regularly spend out of, that you want to be able to give a category. So of course, that's going to be your checking account more than likely. Give it a nickname. You can call it checking. You can call it, for me, I would say USAA checking, whatever you want to call it. It's my bank. And then what is your current account balance? You can estimate right now and edit, but I recommend you just look it up. Figure out what your account balance is. I'm just going to make up a number. I'm going to say it's $5,421. Good number, right? So what is your account balance? Hit next. Success. Now you can add another account immediately, or you can click done and see what happens. I want to show you what this does. Okay, so here's my starting balance inside of my checking account. Starting balance inflow. And again, if you estimate for now, you can come back, click directly on it, and then change the number. Maybe it was actually $5,432.10. Right? Save. Okay, so there's your starting balance. Now, if you go back up here and you go to budget, you're going to see, oops, I'm in April, in May, $5,432.10 that needs to be budgeted. Okay. So I want to start here before we add other accounts, because if you don't want every single dollar that's in your account to have to go to something, and you want to keep a buffer in your checking account, meaning there's money in there, but it never gets allocated to anything other than sit there and look pretty, right? Then you want to add a category inside of your budget called buffer. Super, super simple. I like to put it under long-term savings. It's down here at the bottom. So here's my buffer category. I can immediately come in here and say, of that $5,432, $2,000 of it is a buffer. Done. The account balance stays the same, right? Because that's what it's supposed to be, but you have this $2,000 in buffer. Later on down the road, if you wanted to drop that down or add money to it, it's super easy. You can simply move money out of it, or you can add more money to it in the budgeted column. Okay, so that is how you create your buffer when you first add your checking account. Now we're going to add more accounts. I'm going to do unlinked again, just so I don't have to go through the logging in process, but definitely do log in and link everything when you first add it. Now, I'm going to say that I have a credit card and I actually actively spend, maybe I buy my groceries on it, maybe I put my gas on it, and I actually do some of my bills, and my regular monthly spending happens on the credit card. Again, only regular monthly spending should go onto budget, okay? Because otherwise you have categories upon categories upon categories for things that like you feel like you're double paying things, right? It's going to look weird. So only things that you regularly spend your regularly monthly expenses out of. We regularly spend regular monthly expenses out of. Okay, so I'm going to say that I do. Let's say I put groceries and fuel and a couple of other things on the credit card. I'm going to give it a nickname. I'm going to call it my Capital One credit card. And my current account balance, and YNAB is super smart. It knows that a credit card account balance is negative, right? I'm going to say my current account balance is $543.21. Sticking with the pattern. And next. Now, it's going to ask me, how do I want to handle paying off this credit card? Okay, you can skip this for now and control it manually every month, or you can give it a target. One is to create a goal to pay off your balance over time. This is great for actual like large credit cards. But again, those large credit cards that you're not actively spending regular expenses on, you shouldn't be putting them on budget. And so you shouldn't be getting this option. Okay, so this is for your spending regularly. The goal here would be that you pay your entire balance every month. That would be the goal. So you can select that, and YNAB will help you track that and make, will give you notices, okay? I'm going to skip this for now because I want to show you what it looks like to manually do when you do transactions within your credit card. Okay, done. So there is that one as well, as a on budget account. Okay, it does not impact how much you have available to be budgeted because it's not cash. It's a line of credit, right? The amount that you have available to be budgeted is the cash that you have. Okay, so let's add more accounts. Let's say we've added all of the ones that we actually want on budget, and now we want to add a credit card that we're just trying to pay off. Maybe we're not actively spending, or maybe we only do like one thing at a time and it's not significant and it's not a credit card that we're using within our budget, really. We're going to come down here to tracking, and you're going to go to liability. Okay, anything that's negative, so anything you owe, is a liability. Anything that's positive, like a savings account, is an asset. Okay, so I'm going to come down here to liability, and I'm going to give it a nickname. I'm going to say maybe this is my PNC credit card, and my current account balance on there is $2,345.67. Done. So now I have a tracking account for my credit card. Okay. The good news is this means I can keep track of it. If I've linked it to the bank, which you should, all of the different transactions that happen on that, payments, interest, all of it, they will all come in here, which is great, but it doesn't impact your budget. Doesn't impact it. Transactions in there won't impact it. And then let's say one more thing is that we have a savings account. Now, again, if you put your savings account on budget, every transaction that happens in and out of that savings account has to get a category. I have found in the 9 years that I've been using this software that having a savings account as a tracking and not on budget is easier. It's easier because you're not regularly spending in and out of it. When I need money out of my savings to spend, I simply move it into my checking account and categorize it once it hits my checking account. I don't categorize it out of the savings account. So I'm going to come down instead and call it an asset. Again, it's something that's positive. It's cash I have. It's something I own. And so it's an asset. It's not a debt. And I'm going to call that my USAA savings. And let's say that I have $10,000 in there. So you'll notice I added cash because I had a savings account, but I added it not on budget, which means, ta-da, you don't have to spend it. Again, what happens if you add that on budget? It's going to think you have $10,000 available to save, which is great, except now you have to come down to savings and you have to put all that money in there, which is a great way to track it if you want, but I like to keep mine separate personally. Let me show you what that would look like would be coming down to your long-term savings goals and giving every dollar of this $10,000 a job. So let's say it's your emergency fund, you would put it all right there. Okay. Again, I personally like to keep the budget related to what's happening in my checking account because it helps me to really see the actual flow in and out of my money every month. So we've added our accounts. You can add as many accounts as you need to add. Again, only the ones you're actively spending out of for your regular monthly expenses should go on budget. Everything else is better to go out in tracking. So now we come to our budget. Here we are in May. And this is where we start to be able to budget the money that we have. Okay. So we've said $2,000 of this is a buffer. The rest of it needs a job. Okay. So let's say my rent isn't even due for today is May 11th. My rent's not due for another 2-3 weeks into June. So I don't really need to do that, but maybe it would be smart to put a little bit of money there. Maybe my rent is $1,200. Why don't I just go ahead and put half of that in there right now? And then you get to go, you say, oh, wait, you know what? I haven't tithed on this money yet. Let me put $350 in so I can send that over to the church. My electric bill, it's coming up in the next week. So let me go ahead and put that. That's $145. My water bill's coming up. It's $30. Groceries over the next week or two. Let's say for me, today's May 11th, we get paid in 4 days. And so groceries with the money we already have, groceries we'll need to spend till we get paid again. Probably only like $200, right, for the next week. And fuel just got really expensive and we're probably gonna need to fill up again. And so I'm gonna do that for $50 between now and when we get paid again, right? My only goal right now is to allocate the money I currently have. You're allocating the money you currently have. Car insurance, let's say, you know what, my car insurance does come out, but not before we get paid again. So let me see what else I need to do. Oh, my cell phone's coming out. That's going to be $163. My cable and internet bill, I don't know. When does that come out? Maybe it comes out in 2 weeks. Okay, well, we can pay that one later, right? And you just keep going down from there with the categories that you've created. Now, if you get to the end, let's say you've done a couple $100 for fun money. I like the miscellaneous category, or the stuff I forgot to budget for category, because sometimes stuff just comes up, right? But you can plan for the stuff that comes up. Let's say dining out, we're gonna go out to eat maybe a couple of times. Let's say I need diapers. Let's say my dog needs grooming, right? We just keep going. Subscriptions, my Amazon Prime's coming out this month. They're trying to kill me. Car repairs. Okay, so these are sinking funds, right? So sinking funds is where you save a small amount every month. So let's say, you know what, I'm going to save $50 this month for gifts, and $50 for car repairs, and $50 for home maintenance. And okay, so I still have $1,000 or so. Okay, this is where you start to go, okay, cool. What should I do with the $1,000 I still have that I don't necessarily have a category for until we get paid again? Well, you can say, well, why don't I go ahead and fund some of the things that I know are coming out? Like my car insurance is going to be, $185 or whatever car insurance is these days. My car payment doesn't come out until the next time we get paid, but why don't I go ahead and add that here so that I know for sure that it's covered before we get paid? You go, okay, well, I still have $500. All right, you know what? Let's make a student loan payment. Boom, right? You still have $14.10. Want to do something fun? You can add it to a small vacation fund, right? And start working on it. The goal is to get this number up here to or as close to 0 as possible. Now, when you get more income, so come into checking, and let's say I get paid, my employer pays me, employer, I'm going to put that in inflow to be budgeted, and let's say I get $1,200. When you come back to budget, ta-da, I have $1,200 more to budget out. Okay, well, I'm going to put 120 of it here in tithe because that's my 10%, right? Look what you can do, plus 120. What? Cool, right? You can just do algebra and math inside of this. And you're like, okay, I'm not going to get a full paycheck again in my pay until after my rent's due. So let me go ahead and put the other $600 of my rent in here so that it's done and ready and available for me. And you just keep doing that until this number again is at or as close to 0 as you can get it without going over. It's Price is Right rules, right? And so what happens when you start spending money is these categories will start to go down. So let's use fun money as an example. So we come in here, and let's say I went to the trampoline park because trampoline parks are fun. And I'm going to call that fun money. And it cost us, I don't know, $30 for our tickets. Okay, coming back to budget, coming down to fun money. All right, so there's the $30 I spent. Now I have $170. The cool thing is on the app and on the website, when you look at this category, it will be updated and you can go, hey, you know what? I want to do something else fun. How much money do I have in fun money? And it's right there. Okay. Now let me show you what happens when you spend out of the credit card, because this is a part of setup that also throws people off, mostly because they add credit cards into their budgeted categories that they really shouldn't. But if you did this right, and the credit card is where you buy groceries or fuel, then this is what is going to happen. I'm going to add a transaction, and I'm going to say that I went to Kroger, which is groceries, and I spent $150. Okay, hit save. Now, do you see this little bubble right here that says payment? This is the goal that it has for you, is to pay off everything you spent on it, right? Is to pay off everything you spent. So if you come up to budget, you're going to see that under groceries, that $150 stood up there and the groceries category went down. But when you added that credit card account, YNAB made a fancy little payment down, or a fancy little category down here. I'm just going to move it up one so you can see it better, called credit card payments. It made this for you. And it is automatically telling you, hey, you should make a payment to the credit card for $150 because that's what you paid. You already set this money aside in your budget, right? You already said, I've got $150 that I can budget towards groceries. And so all you have to do now is just move the money. That's it. go to your actual account, because YNAB just tracks, right? It doesn't actually move money for you. Make the $150 payment and then come in here. Click add a transaction. You're going to do payment to Capital One credit card. And you're going to say, I paid out of my checking account $150 to my credit card. And when you come back in here, you'll see that that zeroed itself out because you made the payment. And so it says 0. And same thing, your payment due up here is 0. It helps you keep track of what you actually spent on your credit card so that you can actually pay off your credit card. A lot of people think that they are paying off their credit card and they are not. So it's super, super important. Now, you can see that I have a balance on this credit card. So if I come into checking and I do another payment to the credit card and I call it, and I say, I want to pay off the rest of that $543.21. Come back here. It doesn't, oh, there it is. So now I have overspent my budget, right? I have overpaid my credit card, which is why it is red. I have to find that money somewhere. It has to come somewhere out of one of these other categories or from my to be budgeted. So for now, I can click on this and it says, what do you want to cover this overspending with? And you can choose a category. Well, I'm going to start with the to be budgeted because I've got $480 in there, right? And then I go, well, oh, it overdid it. Undo. I'm going to add the $480 and say, okay, I have $480. Now I have $63.21 that I have overspent paying off my credit card. I need to get this money from somewhere, right? So I'm going to move this $14.10 to Capital One credit card, right? And then also, again, cover this overspending. You can choose a different category. Maybe you over budgeted for groceries. So you're going to go ahead and just click groceries and hit OK. And it automatically moves that $49.11 from groceries down into your credit card. And you've now got 89 cents left for groceries. Okay. But the point is, what you want is to not have any red on any of these. Okay. So money that you spend in other categories on your credit card budgets into those categories. Extra payments you make also have to be budgeted separately. Okay. So I will tell you, this is one of the reasons why I don't spend on my credit card, because it's just complicated to remember to pay it, to remember to make payments. That's why I don't do it. But it is possible to keep track, to be confident in what you need to spend. So again, it's really great, and YNAB does a great job of tracking this for you. So let's say that you get gas for $50, say you have a big truck on your credit card. It just automatically says, oh, hey, you spent another $50 on your credit card. Make sure you pay it off. Make sure you make that payment. And here it is down here, $50 available to you in your credit card payment. The money's there. You just have to move it. And so it prompts you to make those payments. So make sure that if you're doing it that way, you're paying attention to what needs to be paid and letting these prompts from YNAB actually help you to make those payments. Now, if you're making a payment to another random credit card that isn't this one, so let's say we're making a payment to my PNC credit card, transfer to payment to PNC credit card, that one has to have a category because this credit card's on budget. It matches all those other categories. This one is not. So I'm going to call it credit card payment because it's separate. And let's say I paid $100. Again, we now have to go, hey, where's that $100 going to come from? Be like, you know what? I don't want to pay the full $500 on my student loan. I'll do $400 there and $100 to my credit card. Okay. So you get control. You can move money around. You can do what you need to do. Now, if it's too complicated to track too many things inside of budget, if you find that you have added too many accounts in here and you're having to give categories to things multiple times, just do a fresh start and start over. It's okay. The initial setup is the hardest part. Once you get it set up, playing with it, being able to pull this up on your phone and see how much you have available in different categories makes everything so much clearer and so much easier to work with. So If you need help with this, if you need help with setup, if you want me to sit and walk through it with you together, we can absolutely do that. But I wanted to give you a quick overview of the major things to pay attention to when you start your budget. Step one, make the categories what you want them to be and put them in priority order. Step two, add your accounts, having only the accounts you regularly spend money out of be on budget, have everything else be a tracking account as an asset or a liability. That is the best way to do this so that you don't have way too many transactions to try to categorize. Okay. All right. I hope that was helpful.